Hello guys, my name is Diego Pacheco. In this video, it's gonna be a different video, it's gonna be a security video. So we're gonna talk about DevSecOps subject. This will be a video about Agile threat modeling. So this is a companion video for the Agile threat modeling tool. And I want to show how we can get started with the tool and also some of the resources and reportings that the tool generate. So let's get started. So basically, this tool is also Dockerized, right? So I made a very simple script called Threat Agile, where I'm basically running with Docker inside of this script. So if you take a look on my script, what I'm doing is just a Docker run and then running Threat Agile. I'm passing -rm because I want to delete that image after run, right? And so I can just type Threat Agile and we can see the tool running. As we run the tool, we see several options because the tool is kind of a self-explained. So we see, some ASCII art here and also some useful links for the documentation, Docker image, the source code. The tool is written in Go, by the way. And also, besides some parameters, we see some practical examples, right? So the first thing you want to do is to create a model, right? And you don't need to start from scratch. If you just copy the first example here and paste on the console, right, we're gonna be able to create a model by just doing that, right? So if I type it there, then you can see it's done. It was very, very fast, right? And now we have a YAML file, right? And this tool is very data driven, and that's something very cool. So I'm gonna open with my VS Code the YAML file, right? So we can take a look. But I'm just gonna briefly show this. Actually, I want to generate the report and then coming back here because it will be easier to understand. But basically, we have a lot of metadata here. Something about like use cases, systems, databases, tags, and it's very easy to change what's here. For instance, if I want to add a tag, I just go here and putting something like, okay, so let's say I wanna also store some data on Redshift, right, in AWS. So I could easily say AWS Redshift, right? And there's no really a standard, like I could just do something like this. Redshift also will work, right? So it's like a free string. You can put anything as long as it makes sense for you, right? And then we have like data assets. We have links between the components, which are gonna show after running it. There are technical assets. We can module build systems. We can module all like the development environment, the production environment, and we can map other security systems like LDAP or AD. So this is like the standard example. As you can see here, there is also Git, right? But I will explain a bit more later on, right? I just want to scroll so you have an idea, what's here, right? And let's leave it there for a moment, right? Don't be overwhelmed by the size, right? Because this is a very complete example, right? But anyway, let's leave it there, and now let's run, right? So if I just do Threat Agile again, then we see examples, right? And actually, what we want to do is to generate the reports, right? And basically, that's the third example, right? The only thing we need to change is the name of the YAML file, right? So let me do some ls here, right? And you can see my file is Threagile example model.yaml, right? And if we paste this example here, you're gonna see that it's just Threagile, right? So this will not work. So I'm just gonna change example model.yaml, right? Now I'm gonna run. So this is gonna generate a bunch of things, right? It's quite fast actually. And as you can see, it's done, all right? So I will open this file so we can take a look, right? So let me open my Nautilus there. And then, you know, there's a bunch of interesting things here, right? So one thing we have is it generates an Excel file, as you can see here, with all the risks, all right, all the security risks. And we have like the severity, the likelihood that happens, what's the impact. If you read my blog post, I was also talking about stride, and you can see here that it does stride classification. You know, what's the function, what's the risk category, the asset, the RAE, which is a score that says how much this is attractive to an attacker, right? So that's very good summarization. It also generates another file with tags, all right? So we can understand, you know, some of the metadata around our systems. It generates some Json files, right? And this can be used for automation purpose, right? So if I go back to my VS Code, let me go with here. I have one unsaved file here that I don't care. Let me go, where is this? Open editors. I think it didn't. Let me open again because I just opened my file, right? So let me open the whole directory now. Yes, there we go. So for instance, we have risks.json where we basically have in JSON all the security risks. So this is good, like we can parse this file, we can automate verifications here. There's the stats.json, and there is one more, which is the technical assets.json, right? And this can be used for code reuse, or you know, also auditing if we want, right? But the coolest thing is the diagrams and the report, right? So if we go to the diagrams, there is this asset diagram where we see technical assets and how they are related to components, right? Like for instance, there is a build config file for Jenkins. There's a Jenkins server. You know, there's the load balancer. You know, that there's some customer data that goes through the load balancer and so on. And there is, you know, this is the interesting one. It generates an architecture diagram, right, of your modeling. So that's really cool. I think that's one of the coolest things ever, all right? So this is a very complete example. As we see here, we have like a different DMZs for, you know, development network, production or application network, and then we have like a Jenkins build server, have load balancers, have Apache, we have like a ERP system, we have databases, we have like a you know, a sort of a LDAP, you know, database and provider. So we have some other applications. We have GitHub, Git repository, right? So this is super cool, and this was result of that JSON mapping, right? That not JSON, that YAML example, right? And also between the components, we can see how the communication happens. Like the ERP talks to the database via JDBC. There's a back office client, which is desktop, that talks HPS with the ERP system on the dev network, you know, so that's really neat. And if we look at the report, it generated nothing less, nothing more than 180 pages, right? So it's quite compressive, it's quite professional report. So we have like summary of everything that's going on. we have also a sort of a management summary of how many issues were found, how many are critical or not. Let me just try to get rid of that annoying thing. Oh, it's here. Yes. Okay, much better, right? And then then we go with the impact analysis, right? So it find a bunch of things like, oh, the SQL injection could happen, XML abuse could happen, and goes one by one. And this is quite interesting in even to learn security, because it's gonna explain a bit more what the vulnerability are, like, oh, you could have a cross-site scripting XSS vulnerability here, right? So then talks a bit more about the application, some of the diagrams. This is the diagram we saw, and it goes on about some abuse use case. So what could happen, like people could do cross-site scripting, people could compromise the database, people could do denial of service. So this is very educative to learn. Then it goes on the tags, and here we see the stride classification. So you say, okay, so spoofing could happen with the files, like it could be some tampering with the database, could be some repudiation also going on, like information disclosure could happen because of some XML risks there, and so on. And then there's some assignment for function, like, oh, this the business should be taking care. It is more like architecture. It is more like development. And then the RAA analysis, like relative attacker attractiveness, how much that is attractive to the attacker to try to attack that component, like the back office, like 100%. But maybe like the load balancers using proxy is only 17%, so it's not really much attractive to him. And then there's an out of scope and some other things. Then we're gonna go like risk by risk, and then we're gonna have some cool links, right? Like for instance, like this is a common thing. There is a CWE ID, and then we could definitely use this to learn, because it explains deeper what is the problem and what's the solution as well, right? So this is pretty cool. So one thing you can do is go on that YAML and try to module your architecture there and run the diagram and see what happens, right? So I'm not gonna go all over this thing, because as you can see, it's quite big, right? And goes component by component. Just gonna go a bit way to the end. So you see the end of it, right? But that's it. There's even a disclaimer, right? So now let's go back to that JSON a bit more, right? So if I gonna go here, I think I have this in a TMP folder, this one here. Yes, so let me open this again. And so back to this YAML, right? So now that we understand a bit more what happens, let me get one thing cool, like the ERP system, right? So let me keep going, and we're gonna see that component, logs, customizing data. Oh, did I lost it? Let me keep going. Yes, so here, like for instance, there's this back office client, right? So if we go back here, we're gonna see that this guy is here, right? And it talks to the ERP system via HPS, right? So if we go here, all right, so let's understand how this works, right? So we are on the technical assets, right? And then basically, if you see these blocks like from here to here, you just copy and paste and change the data pretty much, right? So very, very straightforward, right? So you have an ID, which is just a unique identifier, some description, free text, then you say the type. The tool also gives you some hints of possible values here, as you can say, right? Then the usage, who uses this. Then you talk a bit more about the size, the technology. You can add tags. You can say if it's exposed to the internet, who is the owner, what is the confidentiality, the integrity, the availability. And then what's interesting is the communication links, right? So you can say, okay, what are other systems that system talks with, right? So and again, this is just a string, right? But we say that it talks with the ERP internal access, right? And then we say that targets the ERP system, and the protocol is HTTP. The authentication is token based. The authorization is end user identity propagation. And a bunch of other informations. And also, as you see, there is a link to the market CMS and so on. So if we look for that ERP system, it's here, right? So we can see how it's defined, right? And we also see what data access it process, right? So we can see, it process customer accounts, operational data, customer contracts, internal business data, and also we see that store ERP logs. We see formats that accept, and we see the links for the communication, right? And we see there is a database traffic, right? So there is a SQL database, right, which is a JDBC access, right? And then we can again search by that. We can see, that's the customer contract database, right? That is this ID. So easily you can change these components, and basically if you just rerun that Docker command I show, you generate all the files again, and you just need to version this file pretty much, right? So this is a pretty cool tool. It's pretty useful to do threat modeling and start doing more DevSecOps with your teams. So I hope you guys liked this video. See you next time. Take care. Cheers.